For a long time, I believed that living alone after 70 was almost like a punishment, a sort of silent warning that life was over. But I was completely wrong. In fact, it was the beginning of everything. Today, at 74, I feel lighter, more in control of myself, and finally, free. If you're over 60 and have ever felt left out, forgotten, as if your story has stopped in time, stay here with me, because what I've experienced could truly ignite a flame within you too. So, sit down, get comfortable, grab your favorite tea, and let me tell you how my life started over in a way that I couldn't have imagined even in my wildest dreams. My name is Ellen, and I live in a quiet little town called Willow Springs, way out in rural America. My house is simple, but full of soul. It has a porch where the morning sun enters without knocking, and a silence that used to bother me, but has now become my favorite companion. But listen, it wasn't always like this. Not long ago, I was still in that same old routine, making coffee, doing laundry, taking care of the grandchildren, living with my daughter, her husband, and the kids. For almost 10 years, I was useful, present, the household helper. But one day, out of the blue, my daughter came and said, "Mom, we're moving, starting a new chapter." And that was it. Without asking if I wanted to come along. Without even imagining that it broke me inside. I had been sensing it. My son-in-law no longer hid his annoyance, and the grandchildren, who used to run to my lap, barely noticed my presence anymore. My daughter, living in automatic mode, always too busy to notice that I was diminishing, fading away. That night, when I was alone in the house for the first time, I cried, but it wasn't a loud cry. It was the kind that comes from deep down, that doesn't need sound to hurt. And you know what hurt the most? The feeling that I was no longer useful. That I had become invisible, like an old piece of furniture forgotten in a corner of the room. But the next day, something different happened. I woke up early, the sun was already streaming through the cracks in the curtain, and the silence was different. It was no longer heavy, sad. It was light, almost beautiful. There were no children screaming, no television blaring, no one asking where their socks were or complaining about the coffee. It was just me, my thoughts, and for the first time in many years, they didn't scare me. I calmly prepared my coffee, sat on the porch, and truly savored the taste of things. People, it seemed simple, but for me, it was like receiving a gift from the universe. And that's when I understood, that moment was my fresh start. I began to see my house with new eyes, and you know what I did? I rearranged everything. I dragged the sofa around, took down the paintings I never liked, opened an old box full of memories, and found my old records. The ones I used to listen to when I danced alone in my room in my early 20s. And guess what? I danced again, barefoot, in the middle of the living room. I felt alive. For the first time in decades, I wasn't the grandma, the mother-in-law, the helper. I was just Ellen, and just that, was more than enough. Of course, there were difficult days when the silence hurt again. But it was a different kind of silence, a silence that gave me space, that invited me to fill it with my own things. I signed up for a painting class at the neighborhood cultural center. There I met a wonderful woman, Mrs. Ruth, who is 80 years old and has lived alone for 15 years. She told me, laughing, "Men now, only by appointment and for short visits." We became instant friends. I also started writing a diary, not because my life was too exciting, but because I needed to record this new feeling, this freedom that I didn't even know existed. Before, I thought I had been left behind, but, in fact, I was liberated. Today, no one touches my drawers, no one says my perfume is too strong, no one looks at me with haste or boredom. Now, I'm the one who chooses. I choose what to wear, where to go, who to talk to, and you want to know the most beautiful truth of all? I discovered that I like myself. I discovered that I am still here, that I deserve to be heard, felt, respected. And if you're listening to me until now, maybe it's because inside you there's also a flame lit, waiting for a breath of courage to shine again. This is just the beginning of my new story, and maybe yours too. Today I can say with all certainty, I have learned to enjoy my own company. I'm no longer waiting for someone to come and rescue me. I no longer need anyone's approval. I simply exist, and, look, just that, at 74, is already a revolution. On that cloudy Wednesday, I woke up with a strange urgent desire to go out, to see the world. It hadn't happened in years. For a long time, my life consisted of going out only when necessary, to the grocery store, the doctor, or to pick something up for someone. But that day was different. I dressed as if preparing to rediscover a forgotten part of myself. I put on a blue blouse that had been tucked away for years, styled my hair in the way I used to when I was young, and liked what I saw in the mirror. I applied a light lipstick, just to remind myself that there was still color within me. I walked slowly towards the center of Willow Springs. I took in everything, the shop windows, the faces, the hurried footsteps. I sat on a park bench and stayed there, just watching life go by, unhurried, without purpose, with no one expecting anything of me. That's when a young woman approached. She greeted me with a smile and asked my name. She said she was conducting a survey for the city hall. I answered her questions: age, where I lived, whether I lived alone, until she repeated, "And your full name, ma'am?" And there, for a moment, I froze. A silence enveloped me. Because it had been so long since anyone had asked me who I was, truly, I took a deep breath, looked into her eyes, and said, "My name is Ellen Grace." She smiled, thanked me, and left. But I stayed there, with that name echoing within me. Ellen Grace. How long had it been since I had heard that? At home, I was just Mom, Grandma, or Mrs. Ellen, but my real name was the name my parents chose, the name that was written in my notebooks, the name that once carried youthful dreams. There, in that moment, I remembered, before being everything to others, I was someone for myself. On the way back, I went into a stationery store, bought a new notebook, and stuck a label on the cover. With a blue pen, I wrote, "Ellen Grace, the beginning of a new life." It might seem trivial, but it was there that I truly began to rebuild my story. In that notebook, I started writing everything down, what I felt, memories, plans. I made a list of places in the city that I had never visited. I noted the names of people I wanted to reconnect with, desires tucked away in the drawer of time. I created a new routine, mine, only mine. Friday is market day. Saturday is cake baking and writing a note to myself. Sunday is old movies. Monday, I talk to Ruth. Tuesday, I learn a new word in French. None of this seems like much to an outsider. But for me, each small ritual is a reminder. I am alive. I have a choice. I belong to myself. And the more I reconnect with myself, the more others also begin to see me differently. Just the other day, the building doorman told me, "Donna Ellen, your eyes have a new sparkle." And I thought, it's the sparkle of someone who has come home after years lost in the corridors of other people's lives, because living alone isn't the same as being alone. Living alone is having space to hear your own voice. It's stepping out of the shadow of children, grandchildren, other people's opinions, and walking barefoot in the light of your own existence. At 74, I chose my name again, and along with it, I chose my story. The first time I hung a painting on the living room wall, without asking if anyone liked it, I laughed to myself. It was an old painting that I bought at a bazaar. It had strong colors, strokes that reminded me of my childhood in the countryside. For years it was hidden away because my daughter said it didn't match the decor. But here, in my house, it goes with everything. Because now, everything here carries a piece of me. And best of all, I no longer have to ask permission to be who I am. Living alone taught me to return to myself. And when I say that, it's not just about being inside the house, it's about truly existing within my own walls. I started taking care of myself in the little things. Cooking for myself, for example, became a gesture of affection. It wasn't anything fancy, but rather food that hugs you. Oatmeal, porridge, rice pudding, well-seasoned beans with garlic. I even went back to eating some fruits with my hands, just like I did when I was a child, because now, no one is there to correct me. I bought a pair of red flannel pajamas with white polka dots just because I thought they were pretty, just because I felt like it. And you know what else? There was no one saying, "What do you need that for, Ellen? You're going to waste money on nonsense." I spent it, yes, on myself, and it was wonderful. I decorated my bathroom with dried lavender. I put up a large, round mirror that showed my whole face, my real face, without filters. I looked calmly. I saw the wrinkles, the gray hairs, the marks of everything I've lived through. And for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt gratitude. This face has lived. This skin has stories. This body has carried me this far. When I stopped asking permission, I started authorizing myself. to say yes to myself and no to others, something I had never done before. I started refusing invitations that didn't make me feel good. I used to go to family lunches just to avoid disappointing anyone, even though I'd come home exhausted, swallowing my silence, listening to snide remarks. Now, if the invitation doesn't come with genuine warmth, I won't go. It's not bitterness, it's self-respect. I've also stopped explaining myself. If I want to spend the whole afternoon reading, I will. If I don't want to answer the phone, I won't. If I feel like crying, I cry without guilt, without thinking it makes me weak. The other day, I decided to paint a wall in my bedroom mustard yellow. Yes, a vibrant, bold color. When I told my daughter, she laughed and said, "Are you turning into a teenager, Mom?" And I replied, "I am." A 74-year-old teenager who finally understands what it means to live. She was speechless. Maybe she thought it was strange. Maybe, deep down, she felt proud. Because, listen, there's something incredibly powerful when a woman my age reinvents herself, sheds the cloak of invisibility that the world imposes, and decides to live exactly as she pleases. It's liberating. And I didn't have surgery. I didn't win the lottery. I didn't fall in love. But I recovered something much more valuable: my emotional autonomy. When I stopped asking for permission, I understood that life had never abandoned me. I was the one who had forgotten about myself. Now, every day, I wake up with a choice in my hands. And, my friend, that's an enormous privilege after 70. One night, for example, the power went out. It was almost 7 in the evening. The sky was darkening, and there I was alone. Nothing worked: refrigerator, televisión, internet, only the sound of the wind hitting the window. A silence that just weighs on you. I calmly lit a candle, sat in my armchair, and took a deep breath. My heart was beating fast, and I thought, this is when this freedom tests me. But, unlike in the past, fear no longer controlled me. It was there, of course, but it didn't paralyze me. Living alone after 70 is this: an act of courage that is renewed every day. There are days when my body aches, my back complains, my legs beg for a break. There are days when we forget where we put the keys, trip on the rug, miss hearing a good morning coming from another part of the house. But along with all of that, comes a strength I've never had before. The strength of knowing that I am enough for myself. That night with the candle, I wrote in my notebook, "I am learning to be my own light, even when the power goes out." And that phrase became my motto, because freedom, at first, is frightening. It pulls the rug out from under you, but it shows you that you have wings. And yes, it's possible to learn to fly even after 70. I still catch myself with doubts, of course. But today, the difference is that when I make a mistake, it's on me. When I succeed, it's on me too. Before, I lived walking on eggshells, trying not to bother anyone, in constant fear of failing, of being forgotten. Now, even fear has a place here, but it no longer dictates anything. When it appears, I invite it to sit with me on the porch. We chat. I say to it, "You can stay, but the steering wheel of my life is no longer yours." Freedom isn't about not feeling fear, it's about walking with it in your pocket and still moving forward. There was a day when I went to the doctor alone. I waited in the reception area for almost an hour. Next to me, a woman huffed and complained while looking at her cell phone. When they called me, the doctor asked, "Did you come alone?" I smiled and replied firmly, "I did, because now I'm my own best company." He looked at me differently, as if, for the first time, someone saw not an elderly woman, but a complete woman. It was on that day that a truth fell upon me like a warm blanket. Living alone after 70 isn't the end. It's a new beginning. A new beginning where you choose everything that nourishes you, not just on your plate, but in your soul. You start wearing what embraces you, reading what inspires you, speaking only to those who truly listen to you. And, most importantly, you stop being part of a house where you were only noticed when you caused a problem. Now, I have my plants, my strong coffee, my battery-operated radio, my colorful agenda. I have my quirks, my silences, my favorite songs playing while I mop the floor. And most importantly, I have myself whole, present, real. Freedom is scary at first, yes, but when we get through that scare, what comes next is a lightness that I never imagined I'd feel at this age. It was a sunny Saturday. The light came through the cracks in the window like a hug. I was on the porch watering my plants when the intercom rang. "Ms. Ellen Grace, your daughter is here with the children. May I authorize entry?" My heart froze for a second. It had been 2 years since she had left. Since then, our conversations had been few, quick. A call on Mother's Day, a message at Christmas. I took a deep breath and said, "Yes, you may." Outwardly, calm. Inwardly, it felt like I was a girl, waiting for an important visitor. I straightened the sofa, changed the tablecloth, brewed the coffee, not to impress, but because this was my home, my territory, my choice to welcome. When she came in with the children, she looked around with surprise in her eyes. "Mom, what a beautiful house. It's all so different." She was referring to the time I lived with her, when I asked permission even to exist, when my presence was discreet, polite, almost a shadow in the back of the room. Not anymore. Now, I was the light. The children ran to the rug, rummaged through my books, fiddled with my embroidery corner, admired the paintings on the wall. One of them pointed to the fern vase and said, "Grandma, this looks like a magazine house." My daughter watched me silently. I don't think she expected to see me so alive, so well, so myself. We sat down, had coffee, and talked. She spoke of life, of moving to a new city, of the challenges. I listened, calmly, without needing to interrupt to be heard. Because now, just my presence said it all. At one point, she looked me in the eyes and said, "I didn't think you'd make it, that you'd wither away, that you'd be sad, double quotes." And I replied with a faint smile. She lowered her eyes. She didn't say anything else, but I saw it. I saw an apology there, not with words, with the gesture, and it was enough. They stayed for hours. We laughed, remembered old stories. The children found pictures of their mother as a child. It was beautiful. She looked at me tenderly and asked, "Do you want me to come back tomorrow?" I took a deep breath and replied with affection, but firmness, "Yes, I do, but only if it's in a relaxed way. We don't rush here anymore, or pretend everything's okay. Here I only receive those who come with an open heart." And at that moment, something changed. She understood. She hugged me as she hadn't done in a long time. It was one of those sincere, silent hugs that says more than 1,000 words. After they left, I stayed there on the porch, with the rest of the coffee still warm in the cup and a good feeling in my chest. It wasn't euphoria, it wasn't pride. It was peace. The kind that's deep, that only comes to those who have had the courage to rebuild their own house, inside and out. Being visited after so long was more than a reunion. It was the confirmation that when we honor ourselves, the world begins to see us differently. Now my door is always open, but only those who understand that a whole woman lives here, who has been through a lot, but has chosen to be happy in her own way, can enter. The other day, sitting in the square with my friend Ruth, she asked me, "So, Ellen Grace, after all this, do you feel lonely?" I thought for a moment before answering. Because yes, there are days when the silence weighs heavily, when my body cries out for help, when longing hits like a cold breeze coming in through the window, but lonely, never again. I never felt empty again. And I said that looking her in the eyes, I feel whole, and that, my friend, is worth more than any forced company. It was there, in that simple conversation, that I realized my life isn't over. It's just changed its rhythm, its tone, its direction. For a long time, people tried to convince me that growing old meant stopping. That after 70, you just observe, just wait, just survive. But that's not true. Life has no expiration date. What ends isn't life, it's the idea that others have of us. The role of constant caregiver ends. The obligation to please ends. The fear of being forgotten ends. And in place of all that, a new woman is born. A woman who has already been silent, already cried, already endured too much, but who, instead of becoming bitter, has chosen to flourish. I discovered that I can still learn, even if my memory sometimes fails. I can still laugh until I cry. Even if the wrinkles show, I can still dream. Even without the rush of youth. The other day, I painted my first painting. And no, it wasn't perfect. But when I finished, I looked at it and thought, this is me now. Mixed colors, flaws, courage, truth. I started writing letters to myself, as if I were my own best friend. In one of them, I wrote, "Ellen Grace, you haven't reached the end. You've arrived exactly where you should be. And now, finally, you're the one who decides the next page." And those pages have been increasingly beautiful, not because they don't hurt, but because now, every pain has meaning. Today, I'm no longer pushed around by life. I'm the one guiding the way, even if slowly. When I wake up, I open the window and take a deep breath. And I no longer think about what others expect of me. I think about what I want to give myself. A coffee just for me, a walk to the bakery, a chocolate in the afternoon, without guilt, a silent prayer, an affection, a slow morning. And you know, it's so good to be mine again. It's so good not to need permission to be happy anymore. If there's something I'd like other women to know, it's this: don't let age steal from you the right to write your own story. At 74, I discovered that my best phase wasn't at 20, nor at 40, it's now. Now is the time. Now that I have the courage to be who I am, unapologetically. I've been called a burden before. Never in those exact words, but through silences, glances, sighs. Is she still here? She's a lot of work. We can't care for her anymore. Phrases spoken with politeness or carelessness, but that weighed like stones in my chest. For years, I thought that was just it. That growing old meant becoming baggage. That my time had passed. That my role was just to not get in the way. But now I know, and I say it with a peaceful heart. I am not baggage. I am living history. I am a root. I am a beginning, middle, and a fresh start. And if you've made it this far with me, I just want to tell you one thing. It's never too late to return to yourself. It's never too late to blossom, to rediscover yourself, to rewrite the ending. Today, after everything I've lived through, I can say with a peaceful soul and a firm voice, I am not a weight. I am a root. I was a root when I held in my arms those who barely remember to ask how I am doing today. I was a root when I kept the family together in the midst of storms, even while silencing my own pain. I was a root when I sustained the world of others, even when mine was collapsing. And now, even living alone, I continue to be a root. Only, this time, for myself. A root doesn't appear in photos, doesn't receive applause, doesn't get likes, but it's what holds everything upright. It's what sustains, what nourishes, what provides a foundation. And that's what I am. I no longer want to be the one everyone looks at with pity. I want to be the one other women look at with hope. I want to show that it is possible, yes, to rebuild a story. That you can live alone without feeling forgotten. That you can age with dignity, and even with lightness. The other day, a younger neighbor called me over on the sidewalk and said, "Donna Ellen, can I tell you something? You have a different light about you. I hope to be like you when I grow old." I smiled. But what she saw wasn't a miracle, nor makeup. It was a choice, a daily choice. A choice to no longer abandon myself. Today, whoever comes to my house finds a simple home, but full of soul. Whoever sits with me for a coffee hears stories, not laments. And whoever sees me walking in the square may not know it, but they are seeing a woman who has cried in secret, and who now walks with her head held high, with a heart at peace. And if I could leave one last phrase written in this invisible diary, which is my life, it would be like this. At 74 years old, I finally understood that the love I was waiting for from others, I could give myself. I'm still afraid, yes, I still get emotional watching old movies, I still feel longing. But now, all of that happens within a safe space within myself. And you, who hear me now, my friend, whether you're a woman of 60, 70, 80, or even any age where life seems to have lost its way, listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. It's never too late to return to yourself. Loneliness can hurt, I know, but submission kills slowly, kills silently. So, make choices for yourself, plant your days with care, and never forget, you are not a burden, you are a root, and roots support trees that can still blossom. If this story resonated with you, touched your heart, or reminds you of someone special, please share it. Let this message reach more women, more weary souls, more hearts that just need a little push to rediscover themselves. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, with love, and activate the notification bell, because here, we don't just tell stories, we ignite lives. Thank you for listening to me until the end. A kiss on your heart. And until next time.